Hey, this is Miss Cooper. We got another weekly review video. This is chapter 6. We're dealing with the expansion of the Industrial Revolution. Our objectives, we're analyzing the emergence and the expansion of this Industrial Revolution, and we're trying to explain the social, geographic, economic, and political implications that resulted from it. And one of the main implications is imperialism. Imperialism is the concept of acquiring or having an influence in regions that are outside of your borders. And it's very closely connected to colonialism. It's very closely connected to slavery. It's very connected to a lot of negative things. But the positive side of imperialism is that it made a lot of money for the countries that went on these imperialistic ventures. They went into different countries. They were getting resources, trying to get coal. They were running their railways through certain countries, even doing things like with the Panama Canal under Theodore Roosevelt. All these different examples of the implications of the Industrial Revolution. And imperialism is kind of what we're concerned about. You know, this idea that you'd go to someone else's country and start taking over. That's a problem. But you would look at both sides of it if you were going to write an essay about it. And basically, you would try to explain how is it a good thing? Who is it good for? And when is it good? And then you would also give examples and explain why is it a bad thing? How is it a bad thing? For whom uh, does it negatively affect? Okay, people in the country where you come in and just take over, and now they don't have any rights, and you treat them horribly and don't pay them correctly. Those are very negative things that can happen when a country goes into another country and has this takeover approach, all because of resources. Yes, so that is the biggest idea that has come out of chapter 6. Now, our weekly review is always comprehensive. So we go all the way back to chapter 1 when we were dealing with things such as France and the absolute rulers. Okay, several absolute rulers came in and around Europe during chapter 1, and we were talking about the response to absolutism, how people were getting tired of that. You know, rulers like King Louis the 14th. And I want to make sure that everybody can see my sign back there. 14 is XIV. 16 is XVI. 13 is XII. I want to make sure you're clear on that because that's a question that comes up on that quiz every week and people miss it. So 14 is XIV. 16 is XVI. 13 is XII. So remember who Louis the 14th was, okay? And make sure you can distinguish him between.
Natasha Snipes, report to the South Office. Nakija Snipes, report to the South Office.
Don't get him confused with the French king at the time of the French Revolution, who was Louis the 16th. That's who got his head cut off. Louis the 14th built the Palace of Versailles. Louis the 14th was the Sun King. Louis the 14th was advised by Cardinal Richelieu. So those are some important names. The divine right of kings, that was the ideology used by those absolute rulers and justified their behavior. Then we talked about the 30 Years' War, okay, and a couple of other names from chapter 1. Chapter 2, we had these Enlightenment thinkers. We had Rene Descartes, John Locke. We had these ideas about rationalism, empiricism, Francis Bacon, inductive reasoning, Voltaire, Montesquieu. The person who is responsible for the encyclopedia is Diderot, and it looks like Diderot, but it's Diderot. That's how you say the name. The philosophes, the great thinkers, the idea of laissez-faire, hands off of business. This is what leads into the Industrial Revolution problems, because we got all these businesses and all these factories and people doing whatever they want. And laissez-faire says, let us do whatever we want. Keep your hands off. But then that idea gets contrasted, okay? It gets opposed, and people begin to say, maybe we should have some regulations so that you're not treating workers horribly, so that you're not working children who are 5 and 6 years old, for 12 hours a day, and putting women underground in coal mines and things of that nature. This is when the idea of laissez-faire gets countered or opposed, and it's contrasted in terms of its sense of, oh, it's a good thing. Yeah, we should do this. People always think something's a good thing until something bad happens. So yes, sometimes you'll have an opposing opinion about it. So that's laissez-faire. The Magna Carta is the document that influenced the United States Constitution and many other written records that pertain to democracy and other democratic societies. Mary Wollstonecraft, she was speaking up for women's rights, okay? She was talking about the treatment of women. The Declaration of Rights and Grievances was another document that pretty much expressed how we don't like the way things are going, okay? Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I Think Therefore I Am, Mozart, musical composer, John Wesley, the establisher of the Methodist Church. Now, in chapter 3, we talked all about the French Revolution and what happened with the Bastille. The Bastille was stormed. They burned it to the ground. They killed the king. The first estate is the church. The second estate is the nobility. The third estate is the bourgeoisie. The bourgeoisie were the most important. They were the ones that were upset. These were the working class and the middle class. And they felt that they were being ignored and alienated, and they had to pay all the taxes. The first estate was exempt from taxes. The second estate, they had to pay taxes, but they were easily able to get out of paying those taxes. And the third estate thought that was not cute and it was not cool, and they said, we don't like it, and boom, here came the revolution. So, yes, and then, let me see. The church didn't like some of the reforms because land was taken away from the church. Napoleon was born in Corsica, Italy. That is where he was born. Now, later, the name of that city is changed. So the point is, the city was Corsica, Italy. Keep that in mind. He rose to power as a military general, and he began to fight and win battles against a lot of France's enemies. Josephine was his wife, and he divorced her after he got powerful, okay? And he failed in Egypt, but he set up a lot of plebiscites and meritocracies while he was ruling. And he declared himself, a consul, and declared himself an emperor. And all of that was like negative because France had just come out of a revolution and they had just got through saying that we don't like absolute rule. And then Napoleon comes and brings absolute rule. So Napoleon's defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. He was exiled twice. Let me see. Other nations built coalitions against him because they thought he was going to take over the world, and they felt afraid and intimidated by him. In chapter 4, we began talking about the Industrial Revolution with Josiah Wedgwood and the pottery industry, the inventions like the spinning jenny that helped the textile mills. James Watt, Thomas Newcomb, Richard Trevithick, George Stephenson all had their ideas circulating around other industries, including the railway industry. Cubism is a form of art. Impressionism is also a form of art. The European population that was 5% was the new elite, and the common class was pretty much 80%, but the new elite controlled a large percentage of the wealth, okay, the new elite. Let me see. The Bessemer process is associated with Henry Bessemer. The Mines Act, keep the date in mind, it's 1842. No, women and children can't work underground, 1842, the Mines Act. Communism is an ideology that says the state controls all resources of the nation. So pretty much there's no private property, there's no free enterprise. Communism, a very concerning ideology that is closely related to socialism, but it's not socialism in itself. But people get concerned about both of those words. The Factory Act, 1819. This is the act that said now you cannot work children that are 5 and 6 years old, okay? It restricted the working age of children. Then there is Samuel Slater, who established, okay, I'm going to skip his name because I'm going to let you go back to your notes to look at that because I don't have my document about that. Name, but his name is on here, so look for his name, and that's in your chapter 5 information, starting from Cubism. Samuel Slater. Then you have Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Thomas Malthus, Karl Marx. Karl Marx is associated with the Communist Manifesto. Him and Friedrich Heinz. Let me not get the name wrong. Let's stick with Karl Marx. There's a second name that's connected to the writing of the Communist Manifesto, but you need to go back to those chapter 5 notes or the videos to make sure you have that name. Unions work to make sure working conditions were suitable. Unions work to go on strike, which meant like a walkout. We're not going to do this work if you don't listen to what we need you to do. Then there's Frederick Engels. That's the name that's connected to Karl Marx and the Communist Manifesto. The utopian community in 1824 that said nobody's poor, everybody's equal, everybody's the same, and everybody's happy. And that was a good idea, very idealistic, but in some cases unrealistic. So that's pretty much the basis of your review. Now, in chapter 6, we have these questions about jihad. We have these questions about the Ottoman Empire, how many ethnic groups make it up. The military campaigns that were against the Ottomans, that in your document, I would have called them crusades, but it was the European campaigns to fight against the Turks. There's some dates you need to check for. What's an example of imperialism? Make sure you can recognize it. The assembly line, Henry Ford with your assembly line, the Model T, the car. Okay, then we had Luddites. That's on there. The people who went in there and destroyed the machinery because they thought the machines were taking over their jobs, and they were. But how is destroying a machine going to help you get your job back? So, but this is what they did, Luddites. Okay, I want to say that's it. I want to say that's it. So make sure you go back and look at all of your bell ringers from this week. The Matthew Perry block print, the Congo Horrors, the trade on the East Indian Railway, even exit tickets. Look at those things and make sure you're clear with the passages. And if you have to Google words because you're not sure what it all means, Google the words. Google the words. Look the words up so you can be clear on what the passage is saying. Every time I read a document to you, I read it to you. So, and stop and break it down and take out words and make sure you understand some of the words and break down the context. All right, so this is your review video for this week. I am not going to hold you responsible for a choice activity today, so I want you to spend the majority of your day just working on review and catching up. If there are any projects that you have not submitted or anything that you had not got done, quizzes, anything of that nature that you know you need to redo those things, okay? Any videos that you need to go back and rewatch them. That's what I want you to spend your day doing today. So try your best to go ahead and follow my instructions. If I've asked you to write down 5 facts, write those things down. If I ask you to create some questions, I want you to do that. Whatever it is I need you to do, just follow those instructions and you'll get a good grade. It's not a hard thing to do. Just follow the instructions and do what we ask you to do. But thank you for being here. We appreciate you. And please send me an email at tjcooper@jmcss.org if you have any questions.